What's going on, guys? Welcome to another week of the Oil and Gas Startups podcast. We're recording this a day after the World Series is done. Astros lost, so Houston's in a little bit of a sober mood. It's overcast. The weather's just kind of gloomy. So, anyways, but it's a good day because we get to record a podcast with my guys, IronIQ. We got Mike and Josh with us here today. Guys,
thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
looking forward to it.
Where y'all from? Are y'all from Houston or where are you from?
So I'm from Grand Junction, Colorado. That's where we're headquartered.
Okay, cool.
We also have an office in Denver, and that's where Josh is at.
Yep. Awesome. So y'all are in town from Denver. I'll be heading up to Denver on Friday.
Oh, good for you.
For a couple of days. So,
all right.
Yeah.
What are you doing up there?
I'm going to go speak at School of Mines.
Are you?
Like the SP chapter up there, and then I'm going to take them out for some drinks afterwards.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a good time.
Yeah, I know you will. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what IronIQ is and what you guys do. Let's start there. It's kind of give me like the high level pitch.
Yeah. So IronIQ is a cloud native modern oil and gas SCADA platform, right? We're trying to get away from using the acronym SCADA because that's kind of associated with kind of an old-fashioned side of the business, but still very necessary and pivotal in upstream oil and gas operations, which is currently where we're focused. But yeah, that's what we are.
Okay, so let's dive into SCADA a little bit. If someone's listening and they don't know what SCADA is, you talk about the SCADA being kind of a traditional old school technology, and you want to kind of get away from that. Tell us about what it is, and that way we can have some context of why you're trying to move away from it.
Yeah, so SCADA, it's an acronym, right? Supervisory, control, and data acquisition, right? There's been a modern push towards industrial IoT, right? Everybody's kind of heard of that.
Yeah.
Where SCADA is different, first of all, it's been around for a long time, right? The ability to remotely control your assets, particularly in oil and gas. I can close a valve here, I can operate a well, I can shut down a compressor, that sort of thing, right? What SCADA gives you over industrial IoT is this secure control layer. So the C in it, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, introducing that seemingly, it's not as simple as it seems, right? Because when you introduce control, you have to have security present, right? And then you also have to have this handshaking and this understanding that when I send this command, it's going to get down to the field and it's going to shut off this valve when I need to shut it off. And then I'm going to be able to read back that status and confirm that, right? So it's kind of it's a grandfather version of what industrial IoT is, but it's also not industrial IoT.
Yeah. So when we talk about a cloud-based solution, like explain to me what that actually means. So I'm learning some. I actually didn't even know what SCADA, what the acronym stood for. So I've always just said SCADA, but I never actually hey, what does that actually stand for? So
yeah, it's pretty boring.
I learned something.
Right?
I learned something right there. But yeah. So tell me, what's the differentiator between what you guys do and traditional SCADA?
Yeah. So traditional SCADA, and what differentiates us particularly is that we had a career in servicing traditional SCADA for a long time. So we came up as a automation engineering and SCADA integration company.
Okay.
So we'd build out, Clear SCADA, Signet, Wonderware, all of these platforms. And we were the cooks, right? Imagine these are the knives and the forks and the kitchen or these packages were, right? The software. And then we were the cooks and we had to build servers out and IT systems and closed firewalled environments.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to take this software and install it. And then we'd have to configure it and build screens out for it and user interfaces. So, and then arrange the data to be pulled into these systems. And then once that's all done, now we've got to maintain it for years and years and years, right?
Yeah.
And it all the way traditional SCADAs typically ran is you have a rack room, inside your organization somewhere, maybe in a field office too. You have geographically redundant setups, right? And that's the way you run, right? And everything is siloed within your organization. Everything's siloed inside this software because when most of this software was built, it was designed to run on-prem, and it was designed not to really think about how it's going to interact with things outside of SCADA, right? So that's a big problem now. You have a lot of really innovative software coming out in the industry. A lot of them we partner with, and their big problem is we have a hard time extracting data and interfacing with data inside these traditional SCADA systems. So where we are different is we are cloud native. We don't run on servers. We don't run on Windows. We don't have any of the security vulnerabilities that come with doing that, right? We are 100% cloud native. So we actually run in a serverless elastic container environment in the cloud. And so what that basically means is, one, we're more secure than any on-premise SCADA system. We're more performant than any on-premise SCADA system, because when you're serverless containerized, when you're set up as containerized microservices like we are, it expands and it contracts with demand. So when I need to pull, let's call it 1 million devices in the field, you try to do that with a traditional SCADA system that's running at, maybe I'm pulling 20,000 devices, but then something happens. I've got to get a heavy load of data in from the field. It'll puke all over itself and just fall over, right? Runs out of resources. Even if you're running on-premise SCADA software on a cloud hosted system, right? You're still running a Windows server, a virtual machine, and it just doesn't perform. Those softwares weren't made to run in a cloud environment. And so there's a big difference between cloud hosted and cloud native. So we're completely cloud native, where we can expand and contract our resources as needed. We also can interface with other third-party systems in parallel as much as as soon as the data comes in, we can get it to a machine learning application. We can get it to, a workflow optimization app, whatever it is.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, with traditional SCADA systems, they're very, geographically based, and they become these data silos essentially. So, like you said, we have a lot of, innovative technologies coming out, but they may not. Let's take machine learning, for example. Machine learning, you have to have good data sets
Yep.
to apply that machine learning,
Yep.
right? But if they go to work with client A, and client A has, they got SCADA system over here, a SCADA system over here, and a SCADA system over here, you have all of this disparate data, these silos, and you can't do shit with it, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, that's the problem with traditional SCADA. You made a comment, and we're kind of getting deep in the weeds here. We'll bring it back here, but you made a comment about cloud native versus cloud hosted. What's the difference between that? Can you kind of elaborate on that?
So cloud hosted would be, if I spun up a virtual machine somewhere on, let's say, AWS, right, or Azure, right, and it's still a Windows server machine, right, and with all the resources that requires, and then I just like that server sitting next to me here, I install my SCADA software on it, and I run it hosted in the cloud, right? Cloud native is, particularly the way we do it, is we're built like Netflix or Uber or any other like modern cloud architected software, where we expand with demand and we contract. Everything is running in containerized microservices. So if one little piece fails, it doesn't require a complete power cycle of right. Your laptop breaks. What do you do? Or your laptop freezes or something goes on with it. Well, hit the power button. Let's power cycle it, right? And all the services come back up and it's magically fixed. We don't do that. We actually have a microservice that's in charge of killing off bad performing microservices within our system. So if something dies, we don't shut down the whole thing, which increases our uptime. We just kill off and have another one within seconds standing right behind it, ready to come back in line.
Yeah, really interesting. Okay, so let's talk about y'all's backgrounds. Mike, you said that y'all came up as a SCADA service company. So why don't you dive into that a bit, and then Josh, I want to know your background as well. Mike, let's start with you. Kind of peel back the layers of what you meant by coming up as a SCADA service provider.
Yeah, so I actually I started in the field doing well control, in western Wyoming, so I did plunger lift applications. I brought in tank levels. I wired up instruments. I created programming on our RTUs, remote units out there that do control. And I built plunger lift programs um, to do that, and then kind of just work my way all the way down the chain, all the way from compressor stations to, admitting large SCADA systems, and then down to refineries and running, building control systems for refineries. And we years ago started a business doing that with a couple of my founding partners. And the the genesis of this product that we've created, our upstream oil and gas product, this Patch IQ,
Okay.
is we were kind of frustrated by the limitations and the failure to evolve um, of all of the systems that we'd used all along the line to basically build our career, right? And we had quite an expertise in these systems, but we realized, man, they're really being left behind, right? They're not doing the things that modern software systems are doing. Well, they're not going to change because they have no reason to change. They control the market. And
Hmm.
so what we proposed and what we did is we actually had a few full stack developers that worked on our team, and we created, the first version of our product and ran it and then made it better and better and said, man, this is the way you definitely need to do SCADA in the future.
That's pretty cool.
So that's how we
I
got
love
down
it.
this path.
Yeah.
Josh, what's your background?
Yeah. So I came over to IronIQ in December of
Okay.
last year. So before that, way back in the day, I did medical device sales
Yeah.
for about 13 years, and then got into with geodynamics.
Yeah.
So in the completion tool side and perforating, and then we sold in 18 to oil states and
Yeah.
hung on for a little bit, and then met up with Mike and Matt Showalter, is one of our founders as well, and um, great guys. Saw the light that in the tunnel there with technology and what they're doing. Made sense, and talking to the folks in production that I know around the industry and the frustrations they have with say SCADA systems right now they use, just made sense for me to come over. So yeah, I came over in December and just traveling all over the place here, just spreading the word.
Rocking and rolling.
Rocking and rolling.
since,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So going from medical cells to geodynamics, that's a hell of a
That was
hell
a
of a
big jump. That
right?
was a
Yeah.
big jump. Yeah.
You go from medical cells helping save people to geodynamics where you're blowing up rocks
Yeah,
and sending explosives down
Exactly.
hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to run wireline, so I
Oh,
ran a
did
lot
you?
of
Oh, okay.
geodynamics
Yeah.
charges back
Yeah.
in the day.
Sure.
So
Sure.
yeah. So with the let's talk about like the progression of the idea. So how long, have y'all been working on this? When did you launch it?
4 years ago was the first version of our product. At
Okay.
that time, it was called Atlas SCADA.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you guys, started building it out, you said you had a couple full stack devs on board, and that's kind of how you got your first iteration. Like, let's talk about actually making the product, because I like getting like down in the weeds, like the nitty gritty of like
Yeah.
how you actually make it. Like you have an idea, you're like, oh, hey, look, SCADA systems are shitty. That's our business working on them. Like they're not good systems. We need to
Mhm.
invent something new. How'd you go about that process of doing it?
Yeah. So luckily, we kind of had the complete package with my founding partners early on. So we had one guy that was an evil genius, and was a really great. He's still with us. His name's Matt Melvin, and just an incredibly smart guy. Was able, we had just a series of years of conversation before we actually arrived at this point 4 years ago, and a SCADA system needs to do this, right? And luckily he was also, he knew SCADA, right? And my other partner, founding partner Dustin Kittleson, and we could do the field component, because at that time we actually we introduced hardware with it as well.
Oh,
We
okay.
still do that, right? But
Yeah.
we're also agnostic, where we can step in the place of.
It's probably better to be agnostic, right?
Mhm.
That way you don't have
Yeah.
to get in the physical hardware game. One, it's harder to scale that way,
Yeah.
but two, it's just, different companies have different types of equipment. So it's better if you just stay agnostic.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
we service that need when we come across it, right? Like some of our customers' barrier to entry is that they don't have any equipment in the field. We're a little interesting where we actually operate it on a subscription. So you subscribe to equipment. You subscribe. We've changed the pricing model for SCADA as well, right?
Yeah.
And so we're all about being turnkey. So
Yeah.
just like the hardware, we install a little man-sized skid there, and it's everything you need to automate a well site. SCADA is presented to the customer the exact same way. We actually have retained our founding spirit of being SCADA engineers. So when you call into our company, or when we handle your onboarding, you actually talk to SCADA engineers that have worked for large oil and gas producers over the years. And it's not software guys. It's the I&E teams are talking to actual SCADA engineers, and that's who's supporting your product around the clock.
Yeah. So you made an interesting comment about some clients may not have equipment out in the field. Let's talk about like how does that work? Like if they want to use IronIQ, how do they use it if they don't have any equipment out in the field? Like how did you guys actually pull that information? Or you said you rent equipment. How does that work?
Yeah, so we obviously
I like learning about this because like I don't know shit about SCADA. So
well, they're gonna.
Honest, like,
I didn't either when I started.
Well, the big thing is we do kind of a site survey. So I'll bring you from step 1 to step 3.
Act like I'm a client. I'm an E&P, and I'm like, hey man, this sounds cool.
Yeah,
let's talk about it. I don't
get him sold, Mike.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have one of basically our field technician run down, and he's gonna run around with you as long as it takes to all your sites, and he's gonna document and do a site survey for you. And your level of understanding of what you need or what you want, it varies from customer to customer, but you tell us, we basically gather that information. We come up with a virtualization plan and basically a migration plan of whatever state your field's into our software. We will build out those units. Typically everything's built on site, right? You order all the packages, all the instrumentation, everything, and you just assemble it hard to the well site and hard to the tanks. And that doesn't happen. We actually, in our warehouse, we simulate everything. So all of your wells, let's say you have 30 wells, we actually build skid units, we simulate everything, we factory acceptance test it, and then we just load it in a trailer and bring it down. And we use quick connect fittings. Everything's wireless. We install it in a couple hours on each well site.
Nice. So it's actually not hardwired.
Mm-hmm.
It's all quick connect.
Well, and it works great for maybe wells that aren't too far out of you're going to use artificial lift, or you're going to use SCADA to prolong maybe a P&A liability on a well, but at some point it's going to happen. You can actually P&A that well and then bring that equipment down the road, reinstall it, and use it on another well, because you're not
mobile.
subscribing to a well site.
Yeah. So it's mobile, so you can transport it from pad to pad.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's plug and play with our SCADA software, our hosted system. So from that point on, you hit the ground running. Yeah.
So if you don't have the equipment, essentially you've got this modular mobile setup that can bring out there and get it hooked up. If I need to move it to another well after we've P&A'd that one, can move it. It's mobile. But if I was a larger operator and I already have SCADA infrastructure in place, doesn't matter. You guys can layer the software over that as well.
Yeah, that's where we can really help, right? Because one thing we noticed in our career, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, is you may be completely all of your assets may be on SCADA, but whether it's through acquisition or just multiple chefs being in the kitchen, you may have 3 or 4 different types of SCADA systems, or you may have one SCADA system, but everything is disparate, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the very powerful things that we provide that kind of goes hand in hand with the data exchange we were talking about is we have a PatchIQ data model.
Okay.
So we have an extraction layer or an abstraction layer built into our system that normalizes your complete data set once it comes into our system. And then because we have a team of SCADA engineers, if you say, I have a Wonderware system, I have a Signet system, I have a Clear SCADA system, I need them all into one, right? There's a lot of power in having everything into one platform for your business to operate on. What we do is we help you migrate that into our system. and we can reverse engineer everything you've got going on in your system. And then from that point on, everything's going to be normalized, right? Compressor is going to be a compressor, tank is going to be a tank, and they're all going to have a relationship, right? That's another very powerful part about our system. So now we can do things like, tell me on Route J what my oil total was 5 hours ago, right? And we can do an API call. Look, whatever software, wants to subscribe to our API endpoint, you can do an API call, ask for just that data piece, get that returned, and use that in whether it's Power BI or whatever.
Yeah.
So that data model is extremely powerful.
That's actually, I wish Jake was here on the podcast today because this is something he likes to nerd out on. But really, the centralization of data and having clean, normalized data, like that's, there's a lot of tech startups in the space that want to focus on machine learning. It's cool, big data and things like that. But oil and gas industries had a big problem of just centralizing and normalizing data, right? And having it on one platform. And then at that point, you can start actually gaining insight and, running analytics or machine learning on top of it. So if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like that's actually a pretty big contributor to making that happen. If like, hey, look, not only, you have through a traditional SCADA system, you have all this disparate data, but we're going to bring it all into a central location, and then we're also going to normalize it too.
Absolutely. Yep. We saw that softwares and really any subscriber to field data, that was going to be their limitation, right? And it couldn't be solved with anything other than the SCADA system. It has to start at the SCADA system because that's where the data is originating, right? So we've almost picked up that flag off the battlefield, and we've said, like, we're going to be the ones that are going to carry this across, and we're gonna we're gonna be the rising tide that's gonna lift all boats. And everybody that subscribes to our data is going to be better, and their software is going to reach fuller potential because we are in the middle of that transaction.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So for you guys, and Josh, in your role, your CRO, right? So let's talk about adoption of the technology. I always like to hear what companies are seeing in terms of adoption, especially with something that's like traditional system like SCADA. You're coming in here and you're saying, oh, look, we can do it better than traditional SCADA. Then that might scare some companies away.
Sure.
What's the reception been to the product, as you guys are trying to get market penetration and get it in more clients' hands? I mean, are people getting the value proposition pretty quick, or?
Yeah, they're getting it quickly. I mean, it's a struggle that everybody deals with on a day-to-day basis. And when I first started talking about the system and listening to production engineers that spend 2-3 hours a day just pulling data out of a legacy system into Power BI, scrubbing that, getting to a report, and then putting back in, that's away from their typical engineering day, right? So the struggle for them is, what does that cost the company? If each production engineer does that each day, and then there's a super user within the group that really owns all that for that group, plus you have a full-blown SCADA team, however many people that consists of. For us, we first started talking about it, we're a shoe-in for folks that are acquiring new acreage, right? So if you're a startup, you don't want to have to worry about extra overhead, hire more people. You're bringing this in the fold. You don't want to worry about the legacy system and worry about servers and maintaining those. Even folks that do IT today, I hear this all the time, is I can't believe in this day and age, I'm still maintaining a server in my location. Why is that happening? So it's a breath of fresh air when we come in. Very well received. We're onboarding another customer here this week. So which is,
I think that's what's like. It's really wild to think, you talk about production engineers spending 2 or 3 hours of their day just pulling data, cleaning it, visualizing it through Power BI or Spotfire or whatever it may be. And then extrapolate that across a team of 10 engineers.
Exactly.
It's like you got really smart people that you're just paying to be, data bitches essentially, and like just pull in information and like it's just grunt work, instead of, hey, we need our engineers to be more efficient and actually thinking through critical problems of how can we make this well more efficient or make this asset more efficient.
Exactly.
So just enabling teams to be more efficient and not spend their time doing work that doesn't contribute to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. We talked about this yesterday with somebody. It's just, you have folks that have their day-to-day, daily grind in the C-level or C-suite, wherever they're at, or operations managers or VPs of production, and they're delegating all this, responsibility to their teams. And they may say to them every once in a while, but it's just part of the gig, right? That's what they've been used to, and it's been a system they've used, and they're entrenched across the whole company, and they've had it for, some of them had it for 20 years, right? Some of these folks have. So there's a lot of this. Their folks are using software that's built in the 90s. It's still the same software. They may have given a little face, a little facelift, but it's still the same software.
No, I've said this multiple times on this podcast, but I remember like 2017, 18, go to some conferences and people would have their software up on display. And I'm like, why are you proud of that? Like, that looks like it was made in the 90s, early 2000s.
Playing Frogger
like,
on it.
It's crazy to me. Like, God. Yeah. So, let's address like, you talked about the C and SCADA. Let's talk about the security of the platform. Everyone's always worried about, security of their data and just making sure that there's no breaches or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know you made a comment about it being more secure. Can you talk, go back to your comment about maintaining on-prem servers? That was always like people, like I remember when you talked about the cloud back in 2016, 2017, like everyone's running on-prem servers. Like there's no way oil and gas will ever operate on the cloud. And fast forward today, and guess what? They are operating on the cloud because it's that like Apple and Google and Amazon operate on the cloud. Trust me, your little oil company can operate on the cloud as well. But with security, especially in a system where you can pulling data right from the asset, have some element of control. How are y'all more secure than physical traditional SCADA systems?
Yeah. So the big security vulnerability is that all of them are built to run on Windows Server, right? Windows, the operating system, the fact that they have to run on an operating system, unless you're keeping that absolutely up to date with every patch and every update that comes out, which I can tell you being on the inside of these does not happen because it will break the SCADA system. And that causes production loss. And this
that's
whole
the problem. You never want to push an update because you're like, oh no, it's working right now.
Exactly. And these just, it's the way it is, right? So the first thing we've done is there's no operating system that we install our software on. It's completely serverless. So we don't have that vulnerability. Nobody's going to come in and attack our version of Windows because we don't have a version of Windows, right? We have a microservice, and there's no one thing to attack. And we have a SOC team that monitors all of our customers' instances 24/7, and it looks for interesting behavior, unknown IP addresses, just like any other modern secure application. We have somebody that sits there and goes, "Oh, this looks crazy," or "Oh, we have an attack here on this microservice. We're going to kill it off and just spin back up another one, or we're going to isolate this." Or we have a team that has the ability to do that, right? And I don't think there's any, if there is, I'm not aware of them, any other on-prem or even cloud-hosted systems that are doing that, right? Obviously they're probably leveraging some pretty advanced IT security structures, right? But they're not taking it to that degree.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys focus on just upstream assets, or do you focus on anything midstream, downstream, or any other industry verticals?
We can do midstream. The problem is it's not. So we have Patch IQ, which is I mentioned we have a data model. We're very specialized in upstream, right? Because there's a big problem to solve up there.
Yeah.
But we do have some midstream. It's not tailored for midstream. We do have Pipe IQ, which is going to be our next product. We're probably going to start wrapping into next year.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily fit Patch IQ to midstream applications. Yeah. Like I said, I have no idea when it comes to SCADA, so I don't know if I could, just like swap it right over to
Yeah.
We can and we
Midstream
do. You know, it's just you know, the way we display facilities, we've got more grand plans than that. But certainly, like our customers that have pipelines, we can retrieve all their measurement data. We can open and close valves. We can control compressors right now
Yeah.
with Patch IQ. But it's right. To us, we hold ourselves to a very high standard, right?
Yeah.
And if we're going to call something a midstream product, it's going to be a midstream product to our standards. But yes, we can make Patch IQ
Got you.
monitoring control
Got you.
midstream. Yeah.
All right. That's a good answer.
Mhm.
Hold ourselves to a high standard. When we ship something for midstream, it's going to be top
That's
tier
right.
for
That's
midstream.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love it. So for you guys, you know, been running the product for a few years now. How did you go about, you know, have y'all bootstrapped this and grown it within cash flow? Did y'all take on funding? Tell us a little bit about how you've built out the commercial aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing was we did bootstrap for a long time. We had a pretty robust service business that we could use to fund our software development. And then when it reached the point where we're like, man, we've really got something here, we did raise some funding.
Yeah.
And you know, we brought in some amazing initial investors. We did have you know, a seed round investor
Awesome.
and an angel investor that has been with us the whole time. Um,
It's awesome when you find good investors.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
Ride,
Helps out
ride
quite a
the wave
bit.
with you. Yeah.
and they've been great, and they've been very influential in our business. And our other founder, I haven't mentioned him yet, Matt Showalter. We actually merged with his company. He had a company called Drillbox.
Okay.
And that's where we picked up the cloud development team that came.
That's what I was
Came
kind of
along
getting.
with
That's what I
that,
was kind
yeah.
of getting at. Is
Mhm.
you know, I like hearing the progression of how things are built. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, where did the development team come from? So he said it was the box.
Yeah, Drillbox.
Drillbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we merged with them 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was Drillbox? Was it like same SCADA idea concept?
Drillbox was a basically an oil and gas data aggregator, right?
Okay.
So they basically you know, sliced and diced and pulled data in from, you know, disparate data sets,
Yeah.
and you know, did the whole ETL thing and then presented it in a nice presentation layer.
Yeah.
Right?
Got you. So, you know, for the development side, what I liked about, or the support side, sorry, what I liked that you said is like when someone calls, you know, they're talking to an IT person that's, you know, handled SCADA. I think that's important, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like calling someone like me, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what the fuck SCADA is in the first place. But that's, you know, what kind of support team are y'all running? You know, if someone's listening to this and they're interested in, you know, trying you guys out and they got questions about the support, you know, is that 24/7,
Oh yeah.
365 support? I'm assuming.
We
Yep.
grew up oil and gas, so it is 24/7, 365, Christmas Eve.
Thanksgiving
matter.
doesn't
Yeah, it
matter.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
And the nice thing about us is we always have two people that know your system, right? And then we have a third that's a rover, and he's in charge of kind of, if somebody has to phase out for a minute, they're going on vacation or something like that, he'll fill in. But they get to know these customers, and our goal is to, you know, we want the in-house SCADA team feel,
Yeah.
but not make you pay for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. If you don't, you know, if you not have that, the cost of the in-house team, I mean, that
Yeah.
it's a selling point too, especially, you know, to the smaller EMPs or new up and coming startups.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They can deploy you guys and, you know, cut some overhead where they don't have to have a in-house IT team.
Mhm.
And that was always like, you know, back, you know, call it 4 or 5 years ago. That was kind of the thing with software, was you'd have software companies look at oil and gas companies, and I'd be like, yeah, look, you got the majors and your large independents, but there's this huge market of independent operators that don't have an internal
Yep.
IT team to
Mhm.
deploy technology. And so you need solutions like this where
Mhm.
it's like, hey, I see the value proposition of what you guys do. I don't have the technical expertise or team to carry it out, but can you help me out? Can it be
Yep.
plug and play? Yeah, it
Yep.
can be. You know, we'll ship out a skid and it'll be quick connect, and
Mhm.
then you can get you up and running in a few hours. And
Yep.
you know, if you need support, call our guys. That way you don't need an internal IT team. So
Yep.
Yeah.
that's a huge benefit.
It
For,
is.
especially for the majority of the market. Like people outside of the industry think that the majors drill all the oil wells. And I'm like, man, they drill like 10 or 15% of the wells in the US.
It's
And
yeah.
the rest
Yeah,
is drilled by a
exactly.
bunch of smaller operators.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you need solutions like that. Last question for you guys. It's kind of vague, broad question, but I just like to see where the mindset of teams are at. Is like, what do you get most excited about over the next year in terms of building the business or deploying the technology? Like, I know you guys got to be excited about something or a challenge that you're trying to, it sounds like you got a midstream product that you guys want to build and launch.
Mm-hmm.
What gets you guys going?
Well, the thing I'm most excited about is finally seeing this section of the industry change, right? SCADA. We'll call it SCADA right now. We're going to come up with a better acronym.
Can I help with that? I love making up stuff.
Yeah. But maybe you can help us with that, right?
Yeah.
That's what we've come to consensus on my podcast that anyone that goes out and services a Bitcoin mine server, we're gonna just call them Bitcoin pumpers. Like, that's gonna be the adage. Like, you're a well pumper, you're gonna be a Bitcoin pumper. So like that's what we do on
Makes
the show.
sense,
We make
yeah.
up terms and we adopt them.
That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, well, we could use some help with that. But the biggest thing is it's our destiny, to be, and I think it's going to happen very soon. People have built some really awesome SCADA systems out there, homebrewed sort of things, but that also means a lot of technical debt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
By the nature of how we built this product and built this business, we will become the best, most modern, most amazing, most rich featured oil and gas SCADA system in the history of, mankind, really. Because unlike everybody else who's doing it in-house, we don't just reach a point and then stop, right? We have a budget for this. We're going to build this SCADA system out, and then we're going to we may add some features here and there. Like, we are consistently building every single day. That is our mission, right? And we're listening. We have the network effect, right? Like, we're bringing in information and advice from our large guys, our small guys, our independents. Everybody has good ideas, and we use that to enrich our system. And so the way we've set ourselves up, like, we're going to be we're going to be the best SCADA system out there. Yeah.
I love it. If someone's listening to the show, we have lots of production engineers that are listeners. Where can they find you guys at if they want to check out the software or get a demo? What's the website? Is it
iron-iq.com.
iron-iq.com. All right. We'll put a link to that in the show notes so that you guys can check it out. And are y'all on LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You search these guys and find them on LinkedIn. We'll put your LinkedIn bios or links in the show notes. I think that this is really interesting to me because you look at the evolution of technology. Once upon a time, SCADA was, very innovative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the new, like, oh man, we can have control, data, and then it doesn't take long for that to get outdated. And I think that the oil and gas industry can do a lot more with technology once we get the data issue figured out in terms of centralizing it, cleaning it up, and standardizing it. So this is actually really, really interesting to me, and hope to see you guys succeed and hopefully help out those production engineers to where they don't have to spend 3 hours of their day pulling and transferring data.
That's Josh's mission. He's got a mandate to go out there and save as many as he can.
Josh is going to be saving the production engineers. So,
that's right.
Guys, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking to us about this technology, and hopefully be able to get you guys on soon and have a good update.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed that episode, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. You guys kind of stop leaving us reviews. I don't know if they matter or not on Apple, and you can't even do it on Spotify. But if you're on Apple, leave us a 5-star review. Go to our website, check out the Big Digital Energy newsletter, and then check out the BDE show. Chuck and I host it every Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning. Catch you guys next week.